I call to order the workshop. Oh, please make sure your mics are on. That's my message to you guys. I guess we're leaving our mics off these days. I call to order the workshop for Bullhead City School Board on Thursday, July 17th, 2025 at 5:30 p.m. Roll call. Present, Melinda Sabrowski.
Charlene Diaz here.
Fred Rushton here.
Barbara Zarzicki here.
Judy Reed here.
Thank you, Fred, for making us whole again.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, thank you.
Mrs. Stewart, Dr. Stewart, you want to talk to us about the scores?
Actually, I'm going to have Jen talk to you about the scores. She's pulled all the data and has had the time, bless her heart, to do a lot of analysis of the data. We did share it with the principals last week when we did our 2 days of, well, end of last week and beginning of this week when we did our 2 days of leadership team orientation to get started, and had some robust conversations about what the data tell us, and some planning already for moving ahead. And then Jen's also had those conversations with the instructional coaches, and so plans are already, actually it's not just plans, actions are already in place because they've been working with the new teachers yesterday and today, and we'll work with them tomorrow. So your show, Jen.
Okay. All right, these are the results of this spring. The preliminary results, they won't change much, so. So this is the cohorts. It's kind of discouraging when you see like how we're keeping up with cohorts from like each grade, so like the third, the fourth, and fifth. Mm-hmm. There's some good in there, but the maintaining seems to be an issue. I'll show you later how like when you.
I had a question on this, Jen. Does the fact that like fifth grade math, okay, goes from 2420 to 16, does that mean that those students are no longer in the district?
No, it is when they were in third grade. They're like in math in third grade. There was 24% proficiency.
Okay,
Then
all
when
right.
that group went to fourth grade, it was 20, and then when that
Okay,
group went
it
to
was
fifth grade-
lower. Okay.
Mhm.
All right, I'm sorry. I
No, it's fine.
interrupted you.
No, you're good. I'll show you later. We'll get to it, but where the strengths seem to be are within the same grade level. So like if we look at historically like third grade alone, or each grade level alone, so different kids, same standards, it seems where the growth is, but maintaining each group of students as they move through the grades seems to be what isn't.
So how many students are were in third grade at this time?
Oh boy. Let me see. Probably around 200, right around 200 probably.
200 of them, and only 18% passed?
Yep.
That's a scary figure.
Between,
Around 200.
yeah, that sounds about right, 225 or so.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I was looking at.
Well, I don't know. So third grade, those are their proficiencies for this year.
So that's 18%.
This is continuing.
10%.
If you look, and this is their each school for ELA and then each school for math, and it shows where they stay. So blue is highly proficient, green proficient, yellow is partially proficient, and the red is the minimally proficient.
Any good excuses for all the red?
I mean,
Well,
I can give you reasons. I don't want to.
Okay.
I can give you reasons.
I think maybe, since you've asked the question, because I was going to wait until later to share this, because one of the things we talk about is what are factors that impact what goes on with our scores. There's never any one factor, and we've been working hard on instruction and those kinds of things. But when you have 25% turnover of staff every year, it means for 25% you're starting over. We're coming into a year when, for the first time in the 7 years Jen and I have been in our positions, where we have only one site leadership position that has changed. Okay, one, as opposed to 3 or 4. Research is pretty strong that stability in leadership is as important as stability in teachers. But when you have 25% turnover in either group, you move backwards. Another factor that we're not in a position to change under the circumstances, but does make an effect on all of these things, is the fact that with our grade banding, we only have 2 grades at each level, as opposed to 3 when you start talking about growth and change. So every K through 4 is at a site, but only 3rd and 4th grade test. Okay, and then they move to 5th grade. So now they've changed schools. They're there 2 years, and then they change schools. That damages us later when we're talking about school grades, the grades for the schools and those kinds of things. Doesn't affect this so much, but it does affect it a bit. Whereas if we'd stayed K-5, then we would have had 3 grades together, and at 6 through 8, we would have had 3 grades, and the kids would only have changed schools once in that setup. So, not intending to be excuses, they are factors that play into all of our testing and all of our student progress and outcomes. And then at one of our sites this year, and please understand, there's no blame game here, but the principal at one of our sites taught half a day every day for 2nd semester. So was not being a principal for at least half a day. For a fairly large portion of that time, the assistant principal was on maternity leave, which meant that the instructional coach was trying to hold all the pieces together, and did as good a job as anybody could possibly do in that role. But not having those 2 leaders for a significant amount of time definitely had an impact. So, I can't assign any percentage to what any of those factors play into what we are or are not doing, but you add them all together and there's a significant impact.
We also were looking at standards last year, so unwrapping the standards and finding how many of our teachers really didn't know the standards. And so through that process, we also realized that we had holes in elementary. So this coming year, we have a program to help with phonics and phonemic awareness in ELA. That was a big piece that was missing in our ELA adopted curriculum. And then our adopted program. And then math, we don't have a math screener. So whereas we can take, at the time, Galileo, and know what standards are not being met, we don't know the exact skills that are inhibiting the kids from meeting those standards. So we do actually have a math screener in place also that our teachers will learn to use up through 8th grade, because we have kids in 7th and 8th grade who probably can't do basic facts, and so the screener will help identify exactly where those holes are for Title and for SPED especially to fill. But once again, those are pieces that we're putting in place to help, but
Can I ask a question?
of course you can.
Dr. Stewart, if you had the personnel problem there, where the principal and the assistant was out, so you had no administrator there, why didn't we put the instructional coach in that classroom for the day teaching, rather than taking the administrator and putting him in there?
Okay, well, first of all, the administrator had taught at that grade level, so she had expertise at that grade level, and the coach did not. And secondly, the coach is in every teacher's classroom all the time, so if we pull her for half a day, the principal isn't in every classroom every day, and it tries to be, is in as many classrooms as possible, but they made the decision, and they talked to me about it. It wasn't like they did it blindly, but their pros and cons for who was in the classroom made more sense. The other part is that frankly, our coaches are paid with grant funds, and there are restrictions. So if we pull the coach to teach, then we can't use those grant funds to pay that salary. And then we run the risk of losing that piece of the grant the following year. So once again, there's no one factor, Barb. It's a great question. It is a great question because it's not the kind of thing that we necessarily share with you guys all the time on why, what are the factors that go into making those decisions. And I will tell you one of the things that we told our leaders last week was that they are not to put the instructional coaches in classrooms to teach, particularly since we know we are starting the year with some classrooms that our international teachers are not going to be here yet. Because we need them coaching from day one. We need them coaching people from day one. And so once again, it's, it's like all those plates, the juggling thing that they used to do in the circus. You figure out what it is you need to do to keep as many plates on those sticks as you possibly can. So, and with the cuts we know that are happening with our federal funds, we don't want to risk a single dollar, let me tell you.
Totally
So,
understand that.
but a great question, and probably a question that even some of our employees have. So I'm glad you asked that.
Thank you.
And these are the historical results for the grade is not the example. But how you can see the group of different kids, same standards from ELA or from 2022 to last year.
So how does this compare with the state? And the state give you an average?
Yeah, the state's higher. I mean, I think
The state's higher, yeah.
State is quite a bit higher, if I remember seeing the paper.
In some, yes. In some grade levels, yes.
Yeah,
And I will tell you one of the
very
things.
much higher.
One of the things that I noticed, though, because there is a group that is really out there, a not-for-profit group that's an advocate group for public education that's really going to be working with districts for the next 5 years. Jen, if you go back to the third grade, the slide, yeah. Well, no, the other one, the first one, that one. Okay, so we have 15% of our kids at passing. As statewide, it's 39%.
Yeah.
And, I mean, first of all, I would tell you that's nothing to brag about.
No.
Okay, 39%.
No, it's
is
not.
nothing
Still
to brag
almost,
about,
but
but
it's
it's
still
more
double.
than double what we have, and I get that. So I'm not trying to say, ooh, woe is us because of that. It's on us where we are. But as a state, to say that it's 39% is pretty dang sad.
Okay.
So, but there are groups out there looking to help. So I'm just using that.
The thing is, this sort of implied to me when I was looking at this stuff today,
Mm-hmm.
this implied to me that our kids are not the same kids or the same mix of kids that the state has. And that implies that our kids are below
Mm-hmm.
everybody else. And that's not true.
No.
Oh, no, no.
That's not
It
true.
isn't.
So the thing is, that 15% should not be there. It should not be there.
Should be higher.
It should be much higher.
It should be at least 39%. We should at least hit the state average, and we are not doing that, and we haven't done that for the 6 years that I've been on this board. We haven't even come close to the state at
Well-
any grade level.
And that's showing when Jen shows those other charts.
Yeah.
And.
But I
um,
think that anybody who looked at this today, and of course, we're in workshop and everybody else is watching online.
Of course.
So we need to finish this, but the thing is, unless we are in a dip, where we have all the low kids coming into Bullhead City, which is not true,
No. No.
not at all true, then we should at least be at the state average, even if the state average is not
39,
acceptable.
yes, exactly.
You know, the thing is, this is just,
We're not getting the outcomes that we should be getting.
no, we're not.
And that's the
And
truth.
It's time to figure out exactly why. We've poured a lot of money
Yes,
into, I always reverse this, EI or
IE.
IE. We've poured a lot of money into that, and we're not seeing any better results.
well, I think Jen
Than we
can show
saw
you a
last
couple of
year.
places where we
Okay,
have.
excuse me.
But they're not terrific. Okay, so I'm going to tell you right up front, they're not terrific, but we can begin to see changes. So Jen, if you'll
I'm
go to
sorry,
some of
Jen,
those.
I will not say anything.
No,
more.
no, and
I'm just very, very disappointed.
You're having the same conversation Jen and I had the day that these data came out.
Well,
you're saying exactly
You obviously knew
the-
that I was going to be.
Well, it wasn't because you were going to say it was because we already were shocked about what we have. So, Jen,
I'm sorry, Jen.
so
I'm-
a couple of things if you can, highlight or whatever.
ELA seems to be more of a strength for us than not. Fourth grade, ELA at Sunrise was really the star. You see, as far as our district goes.
And you see where that is, that's in the center.
Jan, I'm new to the board, so I'm speaking from a little lack of information, but should we do a realignment in effect that the teachers who teach math really should maybe teach across the grade level? I mean, I hate to do the high school concept, but more of a use your best to teach the best, And I don't know if you're doing that. I'm speaking from non-information.
That's okay. We did have that conversation last week because, especially, anyone has strengths. So, in general, elementary school teachers tend to have strengths in ELA. That's just, in general. But when we have a lot of our international teachers that come over, they are trained usually in one subject, more in one subject than the other. So, we might hire someone from the Philippines who is elementary certified, but their strength is math, or their strength is ELA, right?
International teachers tend to be stronger in math than our American teachers. I know that. And I just was saying, some realignment. I don't want to do the high school type concept, but I do think that we need to really study some realignment and use your best teachers to teach reading, the best teachers to teach math, et cetera. Whereas they come in and maybe they teach across 4 different classroom levels, but they're going to be more effective because they are more energetic in that field. And I hate to say, I talk to many teachers who hate math. And that is not what we need. We need the person who loves numbers. And so I've been thinking about it, but again, I'm speaking from a lot of lack of information.
Not really, no.
We had that, as Jen said, we had that conversation. Actually, I think it was on Friday, Friday, when we had an all-day with our leaders. And our elementary people particularly went away to talk about that with their own teams. And I said, if this is something where the benefits outweigh the negatives, okay? And Stephanie McCorkle, who's our principal at Diamondback, has worked in a school where that kind of situation was in place. And her team discussed it, and then she sent me an email and said they weighed the pros and the cons. And at an elementary level, a critical piece is if you move those kids across, from teacher to teacher, kind of the high school or junior high model.
Well, I'd say the teacher moved, not the kids, but.
But either way, what we have to know is that the classroom management has to be consistent across those kids.
Definitely.
Because it's way more critical for classroom management in K through 4 than not that it isn't important in the other grades, you all know what I mean by this, right? But the younger the kiddos are, the more difficult self-regulation is, and the more critical it is that there are structures and routines, okay? So anyway, I told them that I would back whatever decision they had, because I'm willing to see what is going to work.
Well,
They ended up deciding not to.
Who loves math might have an exciting math lesson. And if
Absolutely.
they teach that all day, every one of the kids may be excited. Whereas if I'm teaching math, which isn't my forte, I might get through it. But You know, I'm making lesson plans for all day, but if I'm only teaching math over 4 periods of a day, I can have the super duper lesson, you know what I'm just saying, just more time
Right.
spent on
agree.
planning and preparation. And get the kids excited. I'm more saying, let's get the kids excited about the subjects.
Right.
That's when they learn.
Right. And they, as I said, they had the conversations, and I would back them either way. They ended up deciding, Stephanie's group decided the cons outweighed the pros in this case. And I don't know if the other 2 sites had those conversations or not. I have not heard from them. But, you know, the discussion was wide open in terms of what are things that we can do, particularly with math. Because as Jen has said, we tend to be stronger in ELA as a district than we are in math. And so, you know, I'll let her go ahead with that and point out some things.
Just a thought is maybe having one of the schools pilot.
That was the idea.
That, you know.
That was the idea.
Layout or whatever you want to call it, for 1 grade and see how that works.
That was their conversation.
Because it actually, as you were talking, that might help some students who have a hard time regulating their own behaviors. That movement, if they move from class to class, that movement would probably help
the teacher
them.
would be the one who moved.
Yeah, the teacher
It
would
be
have
the
to be the
teacher
mover.
at elementary to be the teacher who moved, probably. But maybe not, you know, and I know they weighed those factors. They had a list of, I know Stephanie's group must have had a really good conversation. They had a list of, I don't know, 15 or 20 pros and cons, you know, whatever. I mean, it wasn't like they had 4 or 5 things on each list. They had a long list on both sides. So, you know, and then, of course, the teachers need to weigh in on that discussion, and they're not here yet.
Yeah.
You know, they're not, the returning teachers aren't here until Monday. So that doesn't mean that they might not revisit it when the teachers return on Monday. Because they need to weigh in on this too. You know, it's not probably a good idea for the decision to be made this week and then say to them, oh, by the way, you know, say to them on Monday, oh, by the way, you're going to teach, you know, there are 3
Only math.
There are 3 classrooms at your grade level, and you're going to teach math to all 3 of the classrooms, and you're going to teach language arts to all 3. That's probably not the best way to go about that.
Oh, you
So
can't do that.
that doesn't mean it might not change next week. It might, and I will back them and support them.
Well, even if they did a pilot program like Charlene said and started it in January, I mean, in second
Sure.
semester, you need time to prepare something like that. It's not something you can say, next week we started.
Yeah, master's good.
But I'm just saying, we need to investigate other means.
Absolutely.
And, you know, when I was principal and you were principal, we were doing a lot of that, where the teachers would team teach, and the math teacher taught both sections, and they got along real well, because usually the rooms were adjoining. But I just don't know. I just, looking at this, I'm just like Melinda, I'm very disappointed in the data.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the math for me was disappointing.
It's very.
There's some good spots with ELA where you could see that they made some improvement. Not where we want them to be, obviously, but definitely improvement. But the math was kind of disappointing.
And Jen can point out, can show you, because she really has analyzed these data, tell you where the weaknesses tended to be at each grade level, in math and in ELA. And in ELA, it was pretty much the same weakness across every grade level, whereas in math, it was different at each grade level. So you might want to share that.
In ELA, it was writing. We've been working in the district, that's been a thing for years, right? But we really need to improve the writing. On the AASA, if a student doesn't submit a gradable prompt, whether they have too much plagiarism, don't answer the question, there's a list of things that mean that their whole ELA test is invalid. So it's not just the writing piece, it's all 3 tests. There's about 25 students across the district that fall into that, but I know that's one thing that Bullhead Middle worked hard on last year was the writing, and in fact, their 5th grade is the only grade that had that as relatively as a strength when you look at their writing scores, their reading scores.
You want to put 5th grade up.
You bet. So once again, But if we look at it as, this is the proficiency levels, when the same group of students was in 3rd grade, then in 4th grade, then in 5th grade. We're tending to lose the kids from proficient to partially proficient. But if you look at different kids, different students with the same standards being taught is where you see relative improvement.
And then also keep in mind, this is a good one to look at too, because 2024 is the first year we did, that we did the new model of instruction, and 25 is the second year. So in both, for 5th grade at least, in both ELA and math, we're seeing improvements.
Kind of like in reading, when they move from 2nd grade to 3rd grade, it goes from learning to read to reading to learn in 3rd grade. It's similar in math, where in 5th grade, they're kind of still learning math, and in 6th grade, they have to apply. So the standards are very different, but it's still, that's just the difference in the standards. Historically, so different students, but same standards being taught. Which is when you see a little growth and at least a decrease in the red.
I don't know.
7th grade is kind of all over the place. These are the proficiency. It's math. I mean, neither is great, but math just seems to be our weak place overall. Science is only taught in 5th grade and 8th grade, so that's why you can see the different years there.
It's only tested. It's not just taught. You said taught.
Tested. Yes, it's only tested in 5th grade. These are the results, the proficiencies. We are piloting new programs this year. We have a group of teachers that are piloting the SAVIS science, and we have a group of teachers that are piloting Mifflin science this year. Because this is our last year in our contract with science. And that's it.
Okay.
So no, we weren't excited either.
I think that's probably the understatement.
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions?
Yeah.
I am so disappointed
Yeah.
that I can't even voice a question.
And I just can't understand how, like, looking at the one, I think it was 8th grade math just now.
97%.
Yeah, 7th and 8th grade math, 3% passing rate in math. What is going on in those math classes in the junior high, for God's sakes? I mean, I taught that for 25 years. And I don't understand why we have such low math scores.
Jen, what was the weakest area?
In 8th grade, it was expressions in the AP equations, so like exponents, sines, and linear equations was my biggest area.
That's stuff they have since 5th grade on. That's not stuff that's that new to them in 8th grade, you know?
No, the one that surprised me was the weakness in, I think it was 4th grade, was it,
Well,
Jen?
3rd grade was multiplication and division.
That, which makes sense, because
Yeah.
that's the year they're learning
That's the year
that.
they learn that. That's usually,
Right.
you know, that's,
But
they're right on.
4th
for it.
grade, I
4th
thought was
place value.
place value, and
Yeah.
I'm thinking,
But
They've
it's
had
4th
place
grade.
value
They had that
since first
into
grade.
second
Exactly,
So,
exactly.
There's,
But obviously, it's not being reinforced every year.
Something.
It needs to be.
Yep.
What they're learning one year is not being reinforced again the next year. Because math especially is a building block.
It all is.
And, you know,
Yeah.
it's a scaffolding. And so the thing is that scaffolding has to be reinforced every single year. And it's obvious it's not.
but the thing is, the whole purpose of Bullhead City 15
Yeah,
is to educate children.
Right.
yeah.
And we are
Not.
obviously, according to this test, not doing that. You know, so we're not living up to our mission and vision.
Yeah.
So we either have to revise our mission and vision, or something has to take care of the red.
You're in agreement.
And I know I'm preaching to the choir, but the thing is, I'm tired of it. And I'm tired of the excuses, because I think that we're not the only district that has the factors that you're talking about.
No,
And
every
they are
district
very-
has.
They are
To
research-based. what you're
different,
talking-
yeah, and with
what you're
different weight
talking-
value, you know, everybody has factors, and they probably have the
But-
same factors, and you're absolutely right, but to different degrees and for different districts, and they're getting the results. They're getting the outcomes, and we're not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So something is wrong.
Schools who are passing at a high rate.
Something that we're doing is wrong.
Mhm.
And we've been doing the same thing over and over and over for at least the 6 years I've been on the board. You know, and that's not counting COVID. You know,
Right.
that's,
Well, COVID data are before these 4
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
COVID data are before these 4 years. so.
okay, I'm sorry. I'll get off my horse now, maybe.
Thank you, Jen.
Thanks,
Thank
Jen.
Yes,
you.
thank you. It does take a lot of that, and it takes a lot of strength to stand up and present that kind of stuff.
Needless to say, she's been very nervous about it for a week.
Yeah, well, she's still high on our list of good people.
That's a
so.
good thing, because both of us were having very negative thoughts about what we needed to do when we reviewed these data, let me tell you.
Well, let's hope that when we review it next year, that we see some real improvement.
So, can I
Closer
ask,
to the state.
can I ask a question? Since the results that we were expecting to see, especially after the excitement over IE, since we're not seeing those results, do you think that it's worthwhile continuing with them?
Absolutely, and we've signed the contract. But I will tell you, we've already had conversations about, and in fact, I'm actually very pleased that one of the things that's occurring this year is that we will have only one coach working with all of the instructional coaches. It has been set up for the past 2 years that the coach that worked with the instructional coaches, that there was one coach for 2 schools, one coach for 2 schools, and one coach for the 5th school. We will have one coach across the board, and no denigration to those other folks, but one school has had 6 coaches in 2 years. I think it's 6. No, 5 coaches in 2 years. Well, you know, the continuity and the stability there is the same as for anything else. I'm looking forward to the fact that there's one coach across the board, and all of our instructional coaches, and therefore teachers, will be hearing the same messages relative to what we need to do with instruction. And I think that's a very positive thing. And it happens that it's the coach that's been at the middle school, and you know, you've seen some of the data that we've had the biggest growth. at the middle school. So I'm encouraged by the fact that we're going to have that one person across the board. We will have one coach for all of our two coaches for all of our principals this year, as opposed to 3. Nothing against any of those people who were coaches, but you can see that there was not necessarily consistency in the messages when there are multiple individuals. So absolutely. The other thing that we look forward to is how this year transitions then for Sandra to be into those roles the following year. And so I see some real value in where we're going with that. Some real consistency.
The other thing we might look at as a board is to stop banding and put the 6th grade, 5th and 6th grade back into the other schools.
That's what I was going to,
We might just consider that as a board, that's where we'd like to go.
and I might mention one thing.
some research on it
Oh,
and
sorry,
see.
Linda.
Okay.
Certainly, I mean, certainly when you're looking at those kinds of things, I mean, I think it's worthwhile to have any of those kinds of discussions.
Yes.
For many, many years in our district, besides when we had K2 at Coyote, it was K5. And the 6th grade was the transition to junior high. So, I think if you go there for those discussions, it's a year-long discussion anyway. It's not the kind of thing that we start doing in January and do those kinds of things. But, it's one of those, let's look at all of the possible things that we could look at to make things work. And then at the same time, look at, okay, where are we being successful, and do we want to break up the place that is being successful? That's kind of the flip side of that. But we look at all of those factors.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do I have a motion to adjourn the workshop?
I make a motion, we adjourn the workshop.
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor? I'm Melinda Sabrowski.
Aye, Charlene Diaz.
I, Fred Rushton.
I, Barb Zarzicki.
Hi, Judy Reed.
Okay, I'm going to move immediately into the regular meeting. Okay. Is it 7 after over there?
Yeah,
Thank you.
6:07.
Okay. I call to order the regular meeting of Bullhead City School Board on Thursday, July 17th, 2025 at 6:07 p.m. Present, Melinda Sabrowski.
Charlene Diaz here.
Fred Rushton.
Barb Zarzicki.
Judy Reed.
Would you guys all stand and say the pledge with me?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, citizens present. The only citizen I see present is Fred. And Fred, did you sign in, Fred? All right, we got it done then.
Those other 6 people are
I was going to say, they're all citizens,
Well,
too.
yeah, but they're, no, okay. I was going to say second class, but that's not true. I beg your pardon. Did you guys all sign in? All right, okay. So we have no call to the public or anything like that, so we're back into donations. And who is Linda Bowden?
Linda Bowden is
Bowden.
the representative for, I guess it's now called AL Marketing Group, but I always think of it as prepaid legal.
Oh, okay.
She has represented prepaid legal in our district for over 20 years, brought that whole program to our district, and so her donated $500 corporate, and then personally donated $100 to pay for the lunch yesterday for our new teachers, and then any remaining funds for to help us with other items for new teachers. Lance tells me that she will be present at the breakfast on Monday.
Good. So we can
So
thank her
you can
personally.
thank her in person. She's been a great partner for the district for over 20 years.
Excellent, excellent. Please make sure that I get to meet her.
Absolutely.
And say-
We'll
and say
absolutely
a
make
thank you.
sure.
Thank you. Item 2.7, adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
I second that.
All those in favor, I'm Melinda Sabrowski.
Aye, Charlene Diaz.
I, Fred Rushton.
Hi, Barbara Zarzaki.
Or Judy Reed.
This is the most empty page I've ever seen you present.
Well, we don't have any discipline reports for
That's
June.
true.
Yeah.
And we don't have any enrollment counts for June. And so you're getting a pretty pared down version of this. I would ask to bring up the work ticket report, because I want you to look at that chart at the bottom. The ticket activity, and also the fact that we had 492 work tickets that carried over, and we had 406 new ones in June. That's because we're hitting, we're fixing and hitting all the things that we can't do necessarily during the school year. But some of them are pretty serious, which is why there were only 265 that were actually closed out. But some of them are, pretty extensive kinds of things. But you can kind of see down at the bottom that the days where there are the spikes, those are the days that Mark is out walking campuses, and as he walks the campus, he writes work tickets for things that he sees on the various campuses that need to be addressed. So you can see that he walks campuses regularly. And he's expected to. It's part of the requirements from SFD and also from the trust. And then they start addressing them. So I kind of wanted to call attention to that so that you could see how busy they have been in June. Updates, you'll see over there on the table a whole bunch of black bags and a few red bags. Our business office and then Lance spent a lot of time, particularly Lance, reaching out to the chambers of commerce and reaching out to other folks to say, hey, what can you share with us to help welcome our new teachers to our district and to our community. And so 9 of the bags are gone because we have 9 people who've been here this week, but those are for the teachers who are yet to come. Total number of items in the bags was over 1,000. Mm-hmm. So, both chambers of commerce, businesses related to both chambers came through with a lot of items. And then MCC, because they are converting to Mojave College next month, or this month, whichever, have all kinds of MCC things left that they can't sell. They can't, they're not allowed to do those things, and so they've donated a lot of items. So there are mugs and I don't know what all's in there, mugs and hats and pads and just lunch bags and all kinds of things that have MCC on them. But what a great way to help our new teachers feel more welcome to our community and what's available here. Because some of the things in the bags are like a visitor's guide thing to say, here are businesses in our community, or here are services in our community, and those kinds of things. So we want to thank all those people, and there'll be a bigger list next month, but I really wanted to point them out since they're sitting here looking
nice.
at you.
That's nice. Yeah, at Women's Council, they were asking
Yes.
for printed things, not, what do you call it? Imprinted things?
Oh, yes, yeah.
So that like all the pencils would
Yes.
say such and such realtor or whatever. And
Yes.
I thought that was kind of a cool idea.
It's a real cool idea.
Yeah.
So that's really the only update I have for you relative to these things. But I'll answer any questions you might have about those budget reports, because keep in mind those are the end of the year reports. So kind of shows you where we were at the end of the year. I'm particularly pleased with the Classroom Site Fund that I think it shows about $120,000 left in that out of 1.8 million, 1.89 million. Because I try to get as much of it out to our folks as possible for the year, and so when you get down to those numbers in the scheme of things, it's like balancing your checkbook and only having 50 cents left. So I feel pretty good about the fact that our teachers got the money.
I have a question. We removed all the carpeting. And this
Yes.
is- have there been people still complaining about that?
No, Nope.
So they've adjusted?
They have adjusted. We actually had that conversation a bit yesterday with the new teachers and the coaches, because I spent some time with the new teachers yesterday talking about safety and the expectations we have for decorating their classrooms and the prohibitions we have for decorating classrooms, and that furniture and carpets and all kinds of things like that have to be purchased from our approved vendors. They can't just go to Walmart and bring in, beanbag chairs and whatever. But we talked about the fact that we had removed the carpet, and the fact that all of us, teachers and everybody, was surprised at how little difference there was in sound in the room, because everybody kind of thought, oh, it's going to be noisier, without the carpet. And because we made sure that every classroom has at least one 10 by 12 carpet in the room. In fact, one of the coaches said yesterday the rooms are quieter than they were before. So we don't quite know why that is the case, but it certainly wasn't anything like we thought it was going to be. And everybody seems pretty okay.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good.
Good.
That's good. We can change.
We can change.
Yes. Okay. Item 2.9, board member updates. I received a complaint from a person online that from my comments last week, or last Monday, 2 Mondays ago or whatever?
Yeah.
On July 7th, yeah.
July,
Yeah,
10 days ago.
Of being disappointed that there weren't people here? Okay. And so I'm apologizing to all those out there in virtual land for saying that you guys were not there. You are there, and I appreciate that. What I'd like to do, though, is to suggest, and this is, I don't even know whether it's possible, the comment was made that there was no way to comment. The person who was talking to me said it would have been nice to be able to use Zoom, whatever they were using, as to write a little comment
For the budget hearing?
Yeah.
about the budget hearing or about anything else that goes on at the board meeting.
Yeah,
And I
when we
know-
stream, we're streaming the board meetings and those kinds of things, so there's no way for somebody to comment or do a call, to do the call to the public on that. However, if we were doing a hearing, we might be able to finagle up something that would let them send in send in a text question or that kind of thing, if we were to do that via, say, Google Meets, or we don't usually do Zoom because of, at a point. No, I know, but at a point that costs us money, but there's Google Meets, and there's Teams, and there are a couple, there are a number of vehicles to use for those kinds of meetings, so we can explore that.
Or like they were saying too, just a way, like even that they could sign in, so that they were in attendance at that meeting, even they weren't here physically. Because if they're sitting home watching it, there's no way for you to know who's home watching it, where they could at least, somehow have some type of sign-in.
Yes, well, we do get a count. James gives me a count every week, after every meeting of how many people were viewing, how many, and how long, relatively how long.
Yeah.
We had 10 at that meeting. We had 10. Okay?
Yeah.
Well, it's 10 more people than were here.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And I don't know who they are. There's, and
Yeah.
that's okay. I don't need to know. I usually, when I look at those data the next day, I'm interested in seeing the length of time that folks stay on.
Yeah.
If there are 10 people, I'm just using that as an example, but if there are 10 people and they only stay on for a minute or two each, that's not real encouraging. But if you've got 10 and 8 of them stay on for the whole meeting, that's encouraging.
That is
because
encouraging, yeah.
they're then they're aware of all the things that you all are doing in the meeting, as opposed to just staying for 5 minutes or for one particular item on the agenda that they wanted to hear about. If you'd like, I can start sharing those data with you, because he sends it to me the next morning, and I can just forward it to you,
would
so
be
you can
really
kind of see.
interesting, just
It
out
is
of
interesting.
curiosity.
It is interesting, and it's
Because-
interesting to see which nights have more people, you know,
And
than
it
other
would be,
nights.
it would be interesting because that's one of our goals is to include more of the
Absolutely.
community. So if we have that data, then maybe we can go and talk about that. But again, I apologize to out there in the streaming land. I didn't mean to imply that you were not important.
Question, isn't attendance at a board meeting one of the points that they get on
Yes.
their prop?
Yeah,
So
for-
if they're,
yes.
if they're just listening,
They don't get the.
they don't get the.
I don't think
the-
so unless they can convince their principal to
points.
sign off on that, but.
Yeah.
No, that's why lots of times during the year, you will see, you know, there'll be teachers here that are not here for a particular item on the agenda is because they're working on getting points for classroom site fund.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Carolyn, couldn't they have something like the day following the meeting that morning, they have to bring in a summary to the principal?
They
of
could.
What went on in the meeting, and
Yep.
there, you know, I sat there and watched the
Yep.
meeting because this is what happened. Because,
Absolutely.
you know, maybe physically they can't get back here for the meeting
Yeah.
because of schedules and stuff, but if they're home watching it, they should
Right.
be receiving credit for it.
Absolutely, and I would hope that principals would accept that. And I will tell you that when principals are not here for the meeting in person, they are watching from home. You know, sometimes because they have small children or, you know, whatever, they can't physically be here, but they are watching. And I find that acceptable as well.
Yeah.
It's not because they don't care.
Are there any other updates from other board members? Anybody else have to apologize to anybody?
No, I pretty much kept my mouth shut at that meeting.
Okay, the consent agenda. I need a motion to accept the consent agenda, unless there are items that we need to pull to discuss.
I make a motion that we accept the consent agenda.
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor? I'm Melinda Sabrowski.
Hi, Charlene Diaz.
I, Fred Rushton.
Hi, Barbara Zarzicki.
Hi, Judy Reed.
Okay, here we go, you guys. Here we go with all the letters and stuff. I hope you guys have read these too. I spent some time this afternoon reading these and making sure.
Yes, and if I may, Madam President and board members, I'm ashamed to say that I can't tell you which one it is, but one of those policies, I did make a couple of editorial changes. Either there were spelling errors or grammar errors, or something that needed to be changed. So it didn't change the substance of the, you know, from the first reading, but it changed the accuracy, if you will, of the policy for the second reading, so.
I got it. Item 4.1, policy JICJ, student use of portable electronic devices at school. This is the second reading. Are there any questions from the board? Do I have a motion to adopt?
I'll make a motion that we adopt policy JICJ, student use of portable electronic devices in school.
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor? I'm Melinda Sabrowski.
Hi, Charlene Diaz.
I, Fred Rushton.
Hi, Barbara Zarzicki.
Hi, Judy Reed.
Item 4.2, policy GDQD, discipline, suspension, and dismissal of support staff members. This is the second reading. Are there any questions? I need a motion to adopt it, please.
I make a motion that we accept GDQD, discipline, suspension, dismissal of support staff members.
There's a typo.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor? I, Melinda Sabrowski.
Hi, Charlene Diaz.
I, Fred Rushton.
Hi, Barbara Zarzicki.
Hi, Judy Reed.
Item 4.3, policy advisory, IJNDB, use of technology resources in instruction. This is the second reading. Are there any questions? Do I have a motion to adopt?
I make a motion, we adopt policy advisory IJNDB, use of technology resources in instruction.
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor? I'm Melinda Sabrowski.
Hi, Charlene Diaz.
I, Fred Rushton.
Hi, Barbara Zarzicki.
Hi, Judy Reed.
Item 4.4, policy advisory for JLF, reporting child abuse or child protection. Second reading. Any questions on this one?
Just clarification, the changes are underlined, is that correct?
Yes, those are the additions, and then anything that's been deleted has been struck through.
Can I have a motion to adopt?
I'll make a motion to adopt policy advisory for JLF, reporting child abuse, child protection.
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor? I, Melinda Sabrowski.
I, Charlene Diaz.
I, Fred Rushton.
I, Barbara Zarzaki.
Judy Reed.
Okay. Item 4.5, policy advisory for JR, student records. Second reading. Any questions? Can I have a motion to adopt?
I'll make a motion that we accept policy advisory for JR student records.
I second it.
All those in favor? I, Melinda Sabrowski.
I, Charlene Diaz.
I, Fred Rushton.
I, Barbara Zarzaki.
Hi, Judy Reed.
Item 4.6, policy GDI, support staff probation. This is the second reading. Any questions on this one?
And just as a reminder, this is the one that we made complete changes in our current policy.
Yeah.
I make a motion, we accept policy GDI, support staff probation.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor? I, Melinda Sabrowski.
I, Charlene Diaz.
I, Fred Rushton.
I, Barbara Zarzaki.
Hi, Judy Reed.
Now we get to the stuff that's first reading.
Well, and actually, these are for information only, so.
These are all
exhibits.
information?
Yes, they are.
Oh, okay. Exhibits, the 3 exhibits.
Exhibits, yeah.
Item 5.1, Exhibit GCQFEA, discipline, suspension, and dismissal of a professional staff member. This is for information?
Yes,
Okay, this
Madam President and board members, if I may, we've had an improvement plan in place for our teachers that we use when we do evaluations. And that's attached to another policy. We have not had a performance or an improvement plan for our certificated personnel for professional conduct. So this policy has to do with professional conduct as opposed to classroom performance. And so when leadership team and I worked on developing it. It looks very much like the other one. It's just that this one is specifically for professional conduct. So no action is needed. I just wanted to be able to
It's
present it to you as we've talked about, so that you know that we are filling in some gaps that we have.
And here's another gap filler.
Yep.
5.2, Exhibit GCQFEB, discipline, suspension, and dismissal of professional staff members.
And so if we in fact then move to some kind of disciplinary action, then we're going to use this as a written warning relative to that same policy. And so for instance, if we've had the improvement plan and the individual does not meet the improvement plan, then we move to this. And then beyond that, we might move to the other policy that has to do with discipline.
Okay. Any questions?
Nope.
5.3 is another exhibit, GCOEB, evaluation of professional staff members. This is a revision.
Right. So this is just a somewhat of a revision of the exhibit that we've been using, and I just specified that this one is related to classroom performance, whereas the other one is related to professional conduct, and then corrected because somehow or other we had not corrected developing or ineffective from that's part of our system now. It had the old terminology, so somehow or other we had missed that somewhere along the line. So, corrections.
Okay, some more information. Okay, new clubs at Fox Creek. Pitmasters Club. I thought that was kind of interesting.
I bet you I know who brought that one before the,
Well, you might. I don't know for sure, but
I bet you it was Mr. Price. I just have a
oh, yes, I
feeling.
think you're correct. So, yeah, you see that they have in fact done what they're supposed to do. They've created constitutions. It's interesting because others in the office saw the term pitmaster and were thinking other definitions of pit.
Oh.
So, you know, like pit boss across the river,
Yeah.
and they're going, we really want to have a club about about that kind of thing.
This is meat smoking and barbecuing.
Yeah, this is smoking and barbecuing.
I just want to be
Was that what it
invited.
is? I didn't know
I
what it
think we
was.
all want to be invited to this club.
Yeah.
And the other one's a technology group.
And the other one is technology. And what's happened is we've had Interact Club, and it has been inactive for a couple of years. We're not going to, we're not going to delete it, but it will be inactive because we haven't been able to find a sponsor. Whereas we have somebody here who's very interested in sponsoring this club, and we have an individual very interested in sponsoring the technology. In the past, we've had 2 paid sponsors for Science Olympiad, and there's really only one person interested in doing that, and so we took that other paid sponsorship and created another club. So a technology club for Fox Creek, which is probably pretty in line with things that kids are interested in these days, right?
Yeah. Are
So
these-
I have a question
Uh-huh,
about the pit master
uh-huh.
club. Are they required to have like a health, whatever it is?
No, I
You know
don't
what I'm
think so.
talking about? Because
No,
they're gonna be
because they're not-
cooking, right?
Yes, but they're not cooking for,
Other people.
they're not cooking for other people. They're not cooking for sale. They're not cooking, they're learning to cook.
Okay.
It's
like
it's
a-
like
it's
a
like a home ec
culinary
class.
Yeah, it's kind of like home ec or whatever, except it's a club. So it's a learning to do it.
Okay.
It's a learning to do it. That doesn't mean that they might not share the food occasionally with somebody, but for the most part, that's not their purpose. It's
And,
it's
got it.
The rules for getting a food card might be taught during this. too.
yes.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, that would be a good.
Yeah.
Handlers,
yeah, food handlers card.
that food
Yep.
handler
Yeah.
certification.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's the word, food handlers. Thank
Yeah.
you. Any other questions? Okay,
We do need your approval.
I do. I'm going to ask for a motion to approve.
I make a motion, we approve the 2 new clubs at Fox Creek, the Technology Club and the Pitmasters Club.
Okay.
I second it.
We have further discussion.
Just a question. In their comments or in their charter, they talked about tournaments.
For Pitmaster?
Yeah.
There might be. There might be around the state. I don't
Oh,
know.
yeah, there's.
I thought that was interesting.
Oh, yeah, there's cook-offs all the, in fact, the foundation had a big one, Pitmaster, one down in Havasu a month ago. And they're nationwide Pitmaster cook-offs and stuff and that.
Where do you sign up to be a judge?
Yeah, no, you've got your chili cook-offs and you got your Pitmaster barbecue rib cook-offs and everything, and smoking and stuff, yeah. It's big.
All those in favor, I, Melinda Sabrowski.
Hi, Charlene Diaz.
I, Fred Rushton.
Hi, Barbara Zarzaki.
Hi, Judy Reed.
Item 5.5, tax credit clubs for school year 2025-2026.
Madam President and board members, we bring this list to you each year to approve clubs and activities that can benefit from the tax credit. And so you notice we've added the new clubs, recommended that, and we didn't put it in the consent agenda because we knew we had those 2 clubs on the agenda, so we couldn't put it in the consent agenda. So, and in the second column, you can see which school sites are interested in those clubs.
Oh.
Do these groups go out and ask for tax donations?
Well, I don't think that the elementary schools do. Middle school and Fox Creek may do some asking, yes. We advertise it widely on our social media, on our website. Actually, Lance and Jenny Becker make appearances at various places and service clubs to talk about tax credit. And also, they make a point of talking each year with those tax preparers in the community to say to them, hey, as you're doing this, you might suggest to the people that you're working with that they make a tax credit donation to the schools, or, to a school, because that's money, that's money that you get to decide how the state spends it.
Kids are better salesmen than adults.
That's probably true.
So
That's
that might be
probably true. That's a good idea.
Okay. Do I have a motion for this one?
Already did.
I make a motion that we accept the list for tax credit clubs for the
Excuse me.
school year 25-26.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor? I, Melinda Sabrowski.
I, Charlene Diaz.
I, Fred Rushton.
Hi, Barb Zarzaki.
I,
Item
Judy
5
Reed.
I'm sorry, Judy, that was rude.
She wants to get
That
out
was
early meeting
rude.
tonight.
I apologize. That's the
I went
second
outta here.
apology tonight, so we're
Yeah,
okay.
Judy's leaving early in the morning for a trip. She wants to get out too, so.
Okay. 5.6, club sponsor addendum for school year 2026.
Madam President and board members, the other three addendum lists were in the consent agenda, but we couldn't put this one there because you had not yet approved Pitmasters and Technology, so I'm asking you to approve this addendum list.
I have a couple questions on this one. Why is it that the yearbook advisor at like Desert Valley only gets $500 a year, but yet the yearbook advisor at the middle school and the junior high gets $600 a year? The same goes for the student council sponsors, $850 at the elementary, but the middle school and the junior high get $1,000. I think they should all be the same. It should be balanced. I don't see why the older schools are getting more than the younger schools for doing. I mean, the teachers are going to be putting in the same amount of time. I
Not
would think.
necessarily. The student
But-
councils at the elementaries probably don't meet as often. I mean, I could be wrong. Chris and Stephanie, you could tell me if they, the student councils at the middle school, certainly at Fox Creek, meets at least weekly.
Plus, I think doesn't Fox Creek, I don't know about the middle school, but Fox Creek, don't they have like a conference they have to go to? The student,
They haven't been going to any
They haven't?
conferences, no. Chris, does your student council meet?
More like monthly, it depends on activities happening, like meeting more frequently, but.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's not nearly the amount of time put in for student council. Yearbook, I mean, we don't even have a yearbook for the junior high. I don't know if they
Yeah.
have a yearbook, but they certainly don't have a club sponsor for it. And I certainly don't have any problem changing the amounts. I mean, you all can tell me what the amounts are for all of them if you want.
I mean, just personally, I just feel that, they should be the same, across the board for everybody.
Okay?
Junior high teachers won't be happy with me, but.
There's a certain amount of equity in that, which
Yeah.
she's bringing up. Anybody else?
I mean, I'm fine if you want to make it all the same. Question is, which one do you want to use?
Well, I recommend this year because of where the budget is and unfortunately way things are going, that we stay with the lower amounts this year, and then if we do have the budget next year, be able to increase it. But I think this year for a safety net, we should go with the lower amounts just to be more fiscally sound.
Okay. We'll
I appreciate that.
Discuss it when we get
Well,
closer to the new budget.
yes, yeah.
The
We can talk
first
about it in the
revision
spring.
of the new budget.
Yeah, and it would be good to, in the spring too. I mean, so that we're way ahead of the next budget.
Okay, so do I have a motion to approve the club sponsor addendum?
I make a motion, we approve the club sponsor addendum with the changes that all schools and all sponsors are paid the exact same amount of money
For this year.
for the school year 24-25, or 25-26 rather.
Okay, thank you.
Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor? I, Melinda Sabrowski.
I, Charlene Diaz.
I, Fred Rushton.
I, Barb Zarzaki.
I, Judy Reed.
Okay. Item 5.7, election of ASBA delegate and alternate. This is the delegate that will decide the political agenda for ASBA.
At the law conference.
You have to go to the law conference.
Yeah, it's at the law conference.
At the law conference in
You'll be on your
September.
cruise, so you
I'm
can't
gone.
go.
So does anybody want to volunteer? I cannot because I'm on the other committee.
I'll volunteer again this year. I was a delegate last year, and I will be there at the conference, so.
Okay, so do I have a motion to elect Barb Zarzicki as our delegate to the,
I make a motion
Yeah,
that
our
we
ASBA
select
delegate.
Barb Zarzicki as our delegate for the ASBA
Political.
and so
a
far,
conference. I guess.
Political agenda.
Political
so
agenda.
far, I think it's just
I'll
Barb and I going, so there is no alternate. We're just,
Yeah.
I'll second that motion.
okay. All those in favor? I'm Melinda Sabrowski.
Hi, Charlene Diaz.
I, Fred Rushton.
Hi, Barbara Zarzicki.
Hi, Judy Reed.
Item 6.1, future topics. I brought up a topic about having a board retreat.
Yes.
Did we do anything with that yet?
I am working with, I forgot her name. I'm working with
Julie.
someone.
Julie Bacon?
Julie Bacon.
Thank you. I'm working with her.
Okay, all right. Anything else that we should be discussing?
Nothing.
It might be nice that after school starts and after some decisions are made on how to improve these things, scores, that we have a sit-down with those people so we understand what's going to be done.
Okay.
And not from principals, instructional coaches or even lead teachers,
Okay.
to know what's going to be done in the classroom so that we can, when we go in and to visit, we can actually see some of these changes being made.
Okay.
And then I think I'll feel better about it if we could do
Okay.
that.
Awesome.
But that's
Mhm.
We'll
second
figure it
month-
out.
Second month, whatever.
Yeah.
Not right away. Anybody else have anything?
Good suggestion.
Does anybody want to suggest to Dr. Stewart that we look into not banding anymore? Since that seems to be one of our
Yeah.
problems, or what?
I think that is something we should look into, is going back to K through 2 and 3 through 5 and 6 through 8 as our schools and stuff like we used to have, and I think it'd be beneficial.
Just to look.
Okay.
Just for information?
Okay.
You know,
Is that what you're talking
yeah,
about, just information?
Yeah, just information to see, you know, in facility-wise and everything, is it, you know, are we able to do it, and is it gonna, you know, are we gonna have to do some major changes in order to do it, or can we, you know, with the facilities we got, be able to do it without much additional cost or anything to us, too?
And Judy brought up the fact of using teacher strength, a math teacher or an English teacher or a social studies teacher using their strength, and you said that they had already discussed this?
I know that Diamondback did, and, I mean, we already do that from 5th grade on up.
Okay.
So at 3 elementaries. Stephanie? Yeah.
Do you want me to share the list of our pros and cons? Share the past?
We could share
Yeah,
those with
if you would share that, Stephanie.
I
that
can
would be-
actually do that, Stephanie. You sent them to me, so I can forward those to the board.
'Cause that would be
And I think
interesting
in
for-
terms of that being a board decision, probably might be down in the weeds a little bit too far. That's my opinion. But you certainly should know what it is and what they're talking about and why they're talking about that.
Yeah,
And
because
then-
otherwise all we see is the score.
Absolutely,
So we need to
absolutely.
see what's behind the score.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I like the idea of starting research early on anything we might
what I
talk
would like
about
to
with
see.
grade banding, and including, you know, the instructional leaders at the sites in on, they all need to weigh in on those things as
And
well.
it would be
so.
interesting to have them come and talk to us. You know, I know
Yes.
that's weeds, but the thing
No,
is.
that one's not so much the
We
weeds.
would actually be making a lot of these decisions.
Absolutely, in terms of those things, absolutely
Otherwise,
would.
we're
Grade
changing-
banding, you certainly would be.
Yeah.
But I also think, just a word of caution, if I might, at this point, so that we can allay any stress and anxiety out there, is that that you want to discuss it and explore it, that it's
Yes.
not a
Oh, no,
foregone
no.
conclusion, because you know what rumors are gonna do.
Exactly,
So I'm just,
exactly, no.
I'm suggesting we head off rumors by saying you want to explore, which is
We're just-
completely legit.
We're just listening.
Yep, absolutely.
Or at
Discussions.
least I am. I
A
don't know about
fact-finding
everybody else.
mission.
I'm
We're out on a
just-
fact-finding
There you
mission.
go, yeah.
Yeah.
We just want to
It's
head
not-
off those rumors.
Yeah.
And anybody and everybody can come in here and talk to us about
Absolutely.
this and give us some information.
Absolutely.
Any other future topics? Okay. Item 6.2, upcoming board events. I know Monday we have breakfast.
Yes.
I'm going to be there. Judy is not,
I'm not.
and you're not?
Mm-mm.
Fred, are you going to be able to make it?
No, I have a doctor's appointment. I'm getting
Ooh.
ready for surgery, so
Okay.
I've got a lot of
Alright.
appointments.
So, those are important.
Yes.
So I guess there won't be a quorum, but there will be board members
Yeah,
there.
there'll be two of us.
We
Um,
post for a quorum anyway,
Yeah.
in case somebody just changes their
Mine
mind.
and.
Yeah.
What's it, July 31st on?
Huh? No.
So the agenda for that is
July
that pretty much set?
For the breakfast?
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's-
July 21st.
Cass has got it.
The July 21st back to school.
It's very
Yeah, I
informal.
know that.
It's very informal. We learned a while back that, that our employees really enjoy the opportunity just to meet each other again and, after the summer and socialize.
There's no
and-
bingo?
No bingo at this one, no.
Oh.
And we'll do a couple of things like, we'll thank any of our sponsors, because we do have some folks who help us with this. But otherwise, it's pretty informal. We don't have any presentations anymore, like any of those presentations. But we do have, a dozen various groups that will be at the tables around the outside, so that our folks can go talk to them if they're interested in, so like Linda Bowden will be there to answer questions about prepaid legal, but we no longer allow, I'm using her as an example, to stand up and make her pitch to the whole group. I do know that Julie Hassett does do a drawing for tickets for the community concert, so she gets a little time to talk about community concert, but then she's giving them something too, so so we're doing that. But so because of the space, we limit it to a dozen, and there are good partners.
Is there a chance that Barb and I could have the microphone for 5 seconds? and
Absolutely.
To welcome the staff? in?
Absolutely,
So that it
anytime.
would be, other than just standing in the back?
Absolutely, we'd love it.
Okay, if we could possibly do that.
Yep.
I was reading in the paper that Mr. Head is our new mayor. I want to congratulate him.
Yeah,
Oh, right,
I saw that.
Okay. And anything else that we had that we need to support in the city? Okay. Okay. Thank you, Lance, for preparing that. 6.3, date, time, location of a future meeting. The next meeting should be on August 23rd.
23rd?
No, it's the 21st.
21st.
Oh,
21st.
It says
Yeah.
Yes,
23rd
it
here.
says 23rd
It's a
here.
typo.
Typo.
Okay, got it. And it says at 5 a.m. or 5 p.m. that it'll open, and 5:30 we're going to start our workshop. Does anybody know what the workshop topic is?
Not at this moment, but I do know that the ASBA has been going through all of the current policies. Cass tells me that they're in Section D already. And I will try to look through to see if there are things that, that might or might not interest you, but I don't know. I mean, it'll be up to you if you want to start through the whole policy book and review things, a few policies at a time, like we started a couple of years ago, and we got probably up to about D or E and then got busy on other things.
Is there a
So-
chance that we could put the political agenda in that Cassie's going to put in
Absolutely.
in the workshop?
Yeah, absolutely, in the workshop. That would be a good idea.
Okay.
Got that? She's got it.
She's got it. Item 7.1, adjourn the regular meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn so Judy can go home and finish packing?
I make a motion, we adjourn the meeting?
I second that motion.
You should.
All those in favor? I'm Melinda Sabrowski.
Charlene Diaz.
Hi, Fred Rushton.
Hi, Barbara Zazicki.
Hi, Judy Reed.
See, we do have short
Meeting is
meetings once in a
now
while,
adjourned.
Judy.